Alrighty, so today we're going to talk about LAFC in the Moving Forward series episode, and we're now getting to the point where we're going to talk about teams that got eliminated in the second round. And the good news for LAFC is that they finally won a trophy. And for a club like this with all the talent that they have, that feels like it's kind of a bare minimum every single season that they have to at least win a trophy. But unfortunately, as we know about LAFC, and one of the big narrative that they have is they simply cannot win cup final. I mean, besides that, the Gareth Bale rescue job that they had against the Philadelphia Union in MLS Cup, they pretty much have lost all the cup final that they faced. That until when it was finally broken against Sporting KC in the U.S. Open Cup, and they crowned as U.S. Open Cup champion. The bad news is, I feel like that big game narrative about this LAFC team, where this is a team that when it comes to some of these big games and these very important games that could either decide how they would look in the playoffs, or just in general in terms of being in the playoff in these cup kind of competition where they have these big games. More times or not, they just doesn't deliver. And once again, we saw it again in the playoffs, not able to deliver and got eliminated in the second round by the Seattle Sounders. In fact, when you look at the teams that have eliminated, they got eliminated. Literally, that's actually the third time that they actually lost to the Sounders in the playoffs, and this is after they pretty much simply owned the Sounders for the past. Well, not just a couple of meetings, but really for the past 10 meetings, that is. But with that being said, they did still finish the season with a 19-7-8 record and finish with 64 points. They scored 63 goals this season while allowing 43 goals. That's good for plus 20 in the goal differential. And then they, of course, famously sneak into the first spot in the Western Conference on the final day because, not only them getting the big win against the Quakes on decision day, but because the Galaxy slipped up on the final day of the season, that's the reason why they got the number one seed. And once again, it seems like the road to MLS Cup will have to go through BMO Stadium in downtown LA. But unfortunately, that did not happen. They got eliminated by the Sounders in the second round in a game where they had a lot of chances in that game. Definitely a lot of chances in the last 20 minutes of the game, but because Stephen Fry just kind of gone back to his old form of stepping up in huge game, and just almost a wall of a stingy defense that the Sounders show throughout the entire 120 minutes of this game. And then of course Jordan Morris scoring a a goal kind of at times out of nowhere, because the Sounders really didn't attack for majority of that game as well. And obviously a bad own goal by Maxime Streno as well is kind of the reason why the Sounders sent LAFC packing in the second round. But that being said, looking at the last five seasons, obviously prior to this earlier than expected playoff exit, they did went to MLS Cup in 2023, trying to repeat as MLS Cup champion, but was unable to do so as they lost to the Columbus Crew. But they did finish with a third place finish with a 14-10-10 record and 52 points. Yeah, definitely not as much points as what we saw in the previous year when they win MLS Cup, where they finished first place with a 21-4-9 record, finished with 67 points. They won the Supporters Shield that season, and they kind of at least lifted the supporter shield curse that we always talk about, where when a team wins the supporter shield, they usually don't win MLS Cup, but they did in this case against the Philadelphia Union in 2021. This was the only season that they did not make it to the playoffs, and yeah, this was just it's kind of a weird season because we always expect LAFC to be the one of the best and at the top tier, and yet this season it just kind of felt like it was off. They finished ninth with a 12-9-13 record, finished with 45 points, did not make it to the playoffs. But prior to that, they finished seventh in the COVID shortened season with a 9-5-8 record and finished with 32 points. And I really think 2020 was kind of where you started to see the downturn for this team, only to find out that it seems like this team was kind of back on top in 2022, because it feels like their GM John Thornton found the replacement that they needed to get themselves back to where they should be near the top part of the Western Conference. But yeah, they finished in seventh place with a 9-5-8 record, finished with 32 points, but they did lose to the Seattle Sounders in the first round. And in the previous year, they also lose to the Seattle Sounder in the Western Conference Final. And this was also a year of huge missed opportunity too. They finished with the best record of a 21-9-4 record and finished with 72 points, which back then was the points total record in a single season. And again, they were heavy favorites to win MLS Cup with all the talent that they have, with the likes of Vela and Rossi being on that team, and yet they can't overcome the Seattle Sounders in the Western Conference Final. Looking at the top goal scorer of this team, unsurprisingly, Denis Bouanga leads the team with 21 goals. He actually finished just a goal behind Benteke in terms of the Golden Boot race. But then you got Mateus Bogusz with 16 goals, followed by Kike Oliveira with 7 goals. Um, and Atuesta with 4 goals, and David Martinez to finish the top 5 with 4 goals. Top assist leader, also the same two guy from the top goal scoring charge. Danny Bouanga with 10 assists, followed by Mateus Bogut with 8 assists. Then you got Kai Kamara. Really, this year he kind of shown that he was the ageless wonder. Actually ends up on the top assist with 5 assists. You would not expect Kamara would be the guy to be on the assist. Consider that's not really his game, but that's where he is. Then you got Atuesta with 3 assists, followed by Ryan Hollinshead to finish up the top 5 with 3 assists for this LAFC team. Their best win of the season, it's got to be the 5-0 win that they had against Nashville. That was just total dominance by LAFC. That's what LAFC can look at the best. And yes, sure, Nashville, they turns out to have a disappointing season, but this was still a Nashville team that, at least in the beginning, people thought that they could still do well, and especially with how good their defense is. You would not expect them to concede 5 goals, but here, I mean, LAFC absolutely destroyed a rigid and at time timid Nashville. Gary Smith's defense, and won that one relatively comfortably. The worst loss of the season, it's got to be that 5-1 loss that they had against Columbus. I mean, I could have gone with the Leeds Cup loss that they had. That one was kind of frustrating as well, because they had a chance to get some revenge against Columbus, unable to do so. But yeah, I would say the first meeting, the rematch of MLS Cup. I mean, this was highly touted as a big belt. It was highly touted between two teams that could potentially meet once again in MLS Cup, and instead it just kind of ended up in a laughter. I mean, Nancy Ball absolutely destroyed whatever Grundolo was trying to do in this one. 5-1 was the win that Columbus had against LAFC. Easily the worst loss that LAFC have ever had at home, and the first time they conceded 5 at home as well. Average attendance, 22,122. That's been kind of the steady number. Pretty much every game is a sellout at BMO Stadium, though I don't know about that. I mean, I've seen some LAFC games where there are definitely some empty seats, and I know LAFC being in a Los Angeles club, the culture with LA team. They tend to arrive late in the stadium and maybe exit a little bit early. So in the beginning we have seen some LAFC games that were just relatively empty, but eventually it kind of filled as the end. But even then, there were times where I definitely questioned in terms of there was actually a sold out crowd. There were definitely some empty seats at some of these games that they play, but not as much. I think that number is somewhat legit. I think maybe 90% legit, because pretty much most LAFC game are almost at capacity level, or at least 90% capacity in TV. MVP of this team, I really want to go either with Denis Bouanga or Mateus Bogusz, because both of those guys really carry the attack for this team. So I had to pick one. I decided to go with Bawanga. Simply, he had the better number. I mean, when Bawanga wasn't there, Bogusz could definitely pick up the slack, but Bawanga just means so much to this LAFC team. We saw it throughout the season. He's easily one of the most dangerous attacker in the league, and could be right up there in terms of MVP level if he wants to. Big the disappointment. I mean, I could have easily gone with Edward Atuesta, a guy that was highly touted when he was brought back to LAFC. It seems like they got a player that before he left LAFC for Palmeiras, he was definitely playing relatively well. That got his move to Palmeiras, but unfortunately, returning, he hasn't really kind of been the same. But instead, I'm actually gonna go with Olivier Giroud, and I just don't understand. Like, the media is saying that Olivier Giroud has had a good season. I don't see it. Like, I feel like he's been kind of a bit of a bust, and this is kind of just another example of when you decided to bring some big name European star player that is kind of near the twilight of their career. Unless you're not belong with Messi and friend, more times or not, in the age of MLS 3.0, we don't usually see these guys do very well and could be difference maker in this league. The league has come a long way of having that retirement league kind of label. And I know these kind of signing does not really shed the label that MLS is a retirement league. But one thing that will shred the league reputation of being a retirement league is that we've seen a lot of these players come to the US and come play in MLS. And while it definitely draw the attendance and the crowd in the stadium to see a great player like Olivier Giroud. Performance wise, he has clearly not delivered. I mean, only one goal that he has scored, which was in the U.S. Open Cup. And to be fair, it's kind of, I say Olivier Giroud kind of is similar situation as what we see with Gareth Bale. I thought when Gareth Bale was here with LAFC, at least for the short time, he didn't really make too much impact. But obviously, everybody will remember the goal that he scored in stoppage time against the Union. That was really the biggest reason why they went to a PK shootout, and eventually John McCarthy had his heroic in that MLS Cup PK shootout as well. And yeah, while Giroud, of course, delivering that big game overall in terms of his over tenure, it's been very mediocre, if not kind of near bust level in terms of the money that they pay. Because remember, he's a DP player, and he definitely does not play like a designated player label. We're not even close to being that level with the numbers and the performance that he's shown. Young player to watch. This one actually surprisingly is a tough one because believe it or not, LAFC has some really good young talent. I mean, we talk about all the good attacking talent that they of course has had, but not a lot of people talk about in terms of their young talent and their youth as well. Relatively good as well. I mean, that's not a surprise because when you're in an LA area, a city that is pretty much rich in soccer culture, you're gonna find a lot of good young talented player. I could have easily gone with either Omar Campos or even Nathan Ordaz, who I feel like he definitely is kind of a guy that maybe might need to move to another club. Consider the talent is definitely there for the limited minutes that he's been getting for LAFC, and if he can continue to develop his career, I don't think staying with LAFC with him not getting a lot of minutes is the right club to continue to develop his talent. But instead, I'm gonna go with David Martinez. This is not a big surprise. I mean, we knew the talent was there. A lot of people talk about he could be the next best thing for the Venezuelan national team, and even though he has suffered some injuries throughout his first season with LAFC, the talent is definitely there. I think this guy is going to be a really good piece for this LAFC team in the near future, and definitely a good piece to eventually sell off in the future as well. And then looking at what went right for this LAFC team, so yeah, as I mentioned, they finally overcome that losing Cup final narrative by winning one against Sporting KC in the U.S. Open Cup final. I mean, besides the MLS Cup win that they had against the Union, as I mentioned, they have pretty much lost all the Cup finals that they have faced. They lost MLS Cup, they lost the Concacaf Champions Cup final twice. Once against Tigres, and then one again Leon. It's always that narrative of them unable to overcome in on the winning side of the cup final. Well, fortunately, they did finally do so against Sporting KC, albeit there's maybe some asterisks in terms of it because once again they were heavy favorites against Sporting KC, probably the biggest favorite that they have heading into a cup final because Sporting KC weren't really doing very well at at home, and some might even nitpick by saying, yeah, they did win, but they could have easily lost that one with the way that they needed 120 minutes to do so. Where they were heavy favorite, they probably should have dispatched a relatively weak Sporting KC side in just 90 minutes. The lethal dynamic combination of Bogusz and Bawanga, probably the most lethal dynamic combination in the league. I mean, sorry, Brian White and Ryan Gaul, but the level that Bogusz and Bawanga can accelerate this attack is nothing like what we probably right up there in terms of the combination we saw with Carlos Vela and Rossi with this team a couple of years ago. I was about to say it's nothing that we have seen before. We've seen this before with two guys that really carries the attack, and especially for LAFC too, as I mentioned. Vela and Rossi did that over the year and early in the tenure of this LAFC team. And again, they're developing some good young talent. That's something that I think is not enough credit, considering, for a top heavy team, you wouldn't expect them to develop some really good talent. But guys like David Martinez, Omar Campos, and Nathan Ordaz are kind of the players that have really come through this LAFC team. And, I do think that for some of those guys, like I mentioned, probably might need to make a move to get more minutes because anytime when you decided to join a super team like what we see LAFC had consistently being one of the top echelon club in the league, it's hard to get minutes if you're the young guys because the coaches are always going to stick with their main team, and this is where the talent that they have to show in limited minutes has to count, and for all of those guys that has really shown throughout the season. So what went wrong for this LAFC team? So again, the big game narrative. I've always mentioned this before. I'm pretty sure LAFC fans are tired of me talking about this, especially they've shown before that they can sometimes win in these big games. But overall, I think for a team with this caliber and the season that they had ever since they came to the league, they should not be having just two trophies to show for. I mean, technically four if you count the Sapporo Shield, but with them only winning MLS Cup in 2022 and then winning a U.S. Open Cup against a weak Sporting KC side, that's again, I feel like they should have more. Like this team, they are going to consider to be really a top team and a team that is considered to be almost a giant in MLS, which I think they are. They need to shake off these big game narrative and not really choke in these big game kind of situation. I mean, that was kind of the problem at times with Bob Bradley. I think it's also kind of the problem with Steve Cherundolo as well. Cherundolo, no doubt, was a good coach. I mean, I know there are some haters, especially from some LAFC fans that don't like some of the tactics that Cherundolo has made. But for more times or not, it has worked really well to a point where, again, the only problem with him is that when it comes to those big games, more times or not, he's not being able to deliver. And then talking about the tactics, I think one of the reason why some LAFC fans are frustrated with Chirino tactics at times is the one-dimensional tactics that he used. Relying very heavily on the counterattack this season. This team was one, if not the among the best team in terms of going on the counterattack. How many times I've said throughout the season, like, when you face against LAFC, you cannot give the ball away or allow them to hit you on the transition because they're a very good team to do so. They have a lot of speedy guy to do so. But at the same time, I'm at times surprised that they don't control more of the possession. I mean, they have shown before that when they do control the game, they can break teams down. And I think the Seattle game was a great example of it, with them just kind of giving Seattle a little bit too much respect at time before realizing that, oh yeah, we can actually control the game and really start to push late. And you just kind of feel like, why didn't they do that from minute one instead of waiting when they're the game up at one apiece, and at times unable to find that clinical finishing. And then of course, as I mentioned, Olivier Giroud, I don't care what some media outlet has had. I feel like he's been a bust, and considered one of the biggest DP flop. And again, we said this before. Just because you decide to get a big name, well, that's definitely good when it comes to your image, and also for the fans to see that kind of big of a player. Unless your name is not Lionel Messi and some of his friends, more times than not, it just haven't worked out. I mean, another great example, you look at when Marco Reus went to the LA Galaxy. I mean, the Galaxy, we know how good their attack is, but Marco Reus hasn't really been featured as one of the big name. Now, obviously, he has battled some injuries during his time. Not a big surprise, because that's kind of been the story of Marco Reus' career. But again, besides that one good game that he had in his debut, he's been kind of almost a non-factor. And again, just another example of this league clearly moving on into the narrative of a retirement league. Really need to rely on these players to make the league better, because the league has kind of gone come a long way from that, and now it's gone to a level where when you are these big name kind of player, they shouldn't be expecting coming into this league and expect they could light the world on fire like they did in the previous league, because this league could be as challenging as some of the previous big European league that they played in. It's definitely shown in these last couple of big signings. But that being said, moving forward for this team, so despite the fact that Olivier Giroud kind of didn't quite work out, that doesn't stop them from decided to sign another big name, and decided to sign another big Frenchman, because it seems like there has been a lot of rumor that Antoine Griezmann could be the next big player that LAFC might get. Now, I haven't heard as much rumor as I did at least a couple of months ago that Griezmann looked like he's going to go to LAFC. There's no doubt that, Griezmann potentially is going to come to MLS. He has said it many times before. He has definitely shown a lot of interest of going to MLS, and if he is going there, it's definitely going to be one of the bigger market. LAFC is definitely that team that could do so, especially with Olivier Giroud, can definitely convince his French teammates to do so. There could be a good possibility that Griezmann could come to this league. Now, will Griezmann have the same impact in terms of scoring the goals like he did all these years with Atletico Madrid and bring it to here to MLS? That could be to be determined. And especially, is he going to have more impact than what we see Giroud did with this LAFC team when he does come in? That's also to be determined. I'm leaning more toward the no, because again, it's been just shown so many times when you sign these name kind of player. These players, they can't just think that this is just an easy league where they can just roll over against weaker competition. There's some good competition in this league, and I think Antoine Griezmann will definitely be in a rude awakening if you think that that is the case where you can be just a free scoring team. And then the other big question is if they do bring Griezmann in this team, what's going to happen to Kike Oliveira? I'm really surprised that LAFC have not given Kike Oliveira more chances. I really think he's finally started to figure things out. I mean, Kike Oliveira used to be one of the most snake bin number 9, but this season I think he's kind of found his form a little bit, and it's just kind of unfortunate that he hasn't been getting a lot of minutes because when you sign the pedigree that Giroud of course has had, you're obviously going to have to play him. And not to mention, it seems like the other reason why Kike Oliveira hasn't got a lot of minutes is because Bogusz has been playing more of that false number 9 spot, and for more times or not, that actually has really worked out. Which that was kind of a surprise considering in the beginning of the season that didn't work out whatsoever for this LAFC team. And then lastly, well, actually not lastly, but the second thing, they need depth in the defense and the midfield. So with the departure of Jesus Murillo, they definitely lost a big piece on that defensive end. And while they were able to re-sign Aaron Long, I think they might be looking for another defender in place of that. The midfield as well, they lose a big leadership skill in Iliad to Austin FC, and there has been rumor that they're looking to trying to replace him in that spot as well. And also, not to mention, the question with Lewis O'Brien, are they going to bring him back despite the fact that he could be on a massive contract once again next season? And then lastly, they should be back contending and still look to be a dangerous team to beat, and still maybe could be the team to beat in the Western Conference. I mean, I know Galaxy fans will have something to say, especially showing me the ring that they won this year. But no doubt, I think those two LA teams, especially LAFC, I think they're probably going to be more motivated next season because they know that they must be very upset not only getting the early playoff exit, but seeing their crosstown rival getting the MLS Cup win. And for a while, we talk about the balance of LA sports. It feels like it's now in favor of LAFC. It seems like they grab more of the headline compared to what the Galaxy has had. Well, now it feels like it's kind of shifting back toward the Galaxy side, where it feels like people are paying more attention to the Galaxy now that they're fresh off an MLS Cup win. And if you're LAFC, if you don't keep up with the Galaxy or at least get the better of your big rival, you're not going to get the more attention, which is something that LAFC always want to do. They really want to captivate the people of LA, want to really pay attention to them, especially the league as well. Really want to make them once again the darlings of the league again, and in order to do that, they need to once again be back at their level and definitely going to be competing for everything once again next season. But there you have it. That is pretty much it. Looking at LAFC in this moving forward series. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video, and if you're an LAFC fan, what do you think is the MVP disappointment? No player to watch. What went wrong? What went right? And most importantly, moving forward, how is next season going to look like? But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.